Money. It affects our everyday life. But how do we make more of it? Manage it. And make sure we make the most of our money. Welcome to Money Mindful, a podcast to teach and support you as you learn to manage your money.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode 18 of the Money Mindful podcast. I'm your host, Meaghan. Today, we're going to discuss the discomfort of success. Are you willing to do hard things? The willingness to feel discomfort for the results you want in your life. This topic is pretty close to my heart. It's going to be a pretty short, sharp episode because I just want to get to the point. But I wanted to bring up this topic with you because so much has moved forward in my life, in particular in the last 12 months. And a lot of it has to do with my willingness to do hard things and experience discomfort. I'll get into more examples of this as we discuss this further. I know it might sound like a strange thing, wanting to feel discomfort on purpose, but it's actually a pretty amazing concept. Last year on the podcast in episode 10, I discussed the concept, the 50-50 of life. It's a concept I learned from my coach. I know I'm always banging on about what my coach says, but she's a pretty amazing woman and has a lot of knowledge to teach, and I can't help but share this information with you guys. Anyway, so I learned this concept from my coach, and being aware of it, it's just helped me move mountains in my life. 50% of the time we experience positive emotion, and 50% of the time we experience negative emotion. Now, why on earth would we want to experience negative emotion 50% of the time? And I guess you might be thinking, surely it's more like 80-20, or can't we just be happy 100% of the time? There seems to be a consensus in today's society that happiness is what we should strive for. If I get that raise at work, I will be happy. If I can just pay off my debt, then I will be happy. I just need to lose another couple of kilos and then I will be happy. But the truth is, life is full of contrast. If we didn't know sadness, we wouldn't know happiness. If you really think about it, we don't want to be happy 100% of the time. When someone dies, for instance, we want to grieve. We want to experience the feeling of loss. It's part of the human experience. Today, more than ever, we live in a world of instant gratification. If there's no food at home, I can just use an app and order takeaway instantly. I can watch movies and TV on demand. I can instantly make purchases online. I don't even need to leave the house. I don't even need to leave the house to do my grocery shopping. We're used to feeling comfortable and having our needs met fairly quickly in many circumstances, right? And we learn it so young these days. I watch in amazement as kids give up on tasks within a few minutes of starting if they can't figure it out straight away or it seems challenging. It's actually shocking and in some respects heartbreaking because you watch these kids and they've already learnt that being uncomfortable is wrong or failure is wrong and they don't want to have any part of it. Yeah, there's so much that I could talk to you about with teaching your kids about growth mindset and learning to fail on purpose, but that's a topic for another day. It's all too hard. I don't know how to do it. I've just never been good with money. No one ever taught me how. These are all lies we tell ourselves to avoid feeling discomfort. It's so much easier to feel confused and not do something than it is to actually take action and feel all the emotions that go along with that. For example, say you've been thinking about changing your superannuation provider, but you have been putting it off because you don't really understand it or you don't know what you need. you actually hate paperwork and you can't be bothered. So you will just continue to stay with the same super company, even though you're pretty sure you could be doing better with your money. The irony is you are still uncomfortable and experiencing negative emotion because you're not moving forward with the result that you want. You're still thinking about getting a new superannuation company, and you're still wasting mental energy thinking about the fact that you really should get around to doing that one day, and you feel the negative emotion of not being happy with what you have. Yet the discomfort you are currently experiencing is familiar discomfort, and it's within your comfort zone. If you went ahead and just did the research, made the phone calls and filled out the boring paperwork you hate doing so much, you'd still feel the discomfort of doing it, but you're already uncomfortable in your current situation. So you might as well feel uncomfortable but get the result that you want. I have no idea what episode it was now, but I remember I told you guys the story of when we got our wills. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. I hated that experience. It went on for far too long, but we did follow through and we did do it, and we did feel so uncomfortable doing it, but now it's done. And hopefully we will never have to do our wills again. We might have to update them as time goes on, but it's something it's done now. So you see, we so often think if we get something or achieve something, life will be better. We will feel better, but it's simply not true. Yes, we will have the satisfaction of achieving the result we wanted, but in life, no matter what our circumstances, we still experience 50% positive and 50% negative emotion. Believe me, Beyonce is still experiencing negative emotion 50% of the time. So where am I going with all of this, and how does it relate to money? Well, in the first episode of this season, I talked about how to make money fast by selling your unwanted items. I talked about how we were moving interstate and I was inspired by the $1,000 project. We decided to sell our unwanted items to create the money to pay for the move. In addition to this, I had committed to doing further study this year. The tuition fees are substantial, and I was also conscious of creating as much money as possible so my income could be used to pay for my tuition fees rather than be used to pay for the move. I decided to sell my camera gear that had been sitting unused for many years. This was a very, very hard decision for me. I worked as a photographer many years ago, and I still had all the gear from that time. I went through a lot of drama in my head about that camera gear. It had a lot of sentimental value attached to it, but at the end of the day, I had a new goal that required me to create more money, and selling the gear was going to get me on the way to having the money that I needed. But I kept putting it off. One of my biggest roadblocks was that I didn't want to feel regret. I was worried that if I sold the gear, that later I would regret it. I also knew it would take a fair amount of effort to collate all my gear, photograph it, and list it. I didn't want to do the work. It was going to be uncomfortable, and I knew it. But you see, just like the fictitious example about superannuation I just gave you, I already was uncomfortable. I was experiencing so much anguish over wanting the result of selling the gear, the money, that was the result, but not doing it out of resistance to the effort it would take and the potential feelings of regret I didn't want to experience. Thankfully, I coached myself through it. I listed the items on eBay because I knew ultimately I want to continue and grow and develop as a person and living my life to the fullest. And for me, that looks like continuing to develop new skills to teach and coach others. I love teaching. Being able to guide someone to learn new skills and grow is one of my life's privileges. By selling my gear, I was easily able to create more money. it was hard work. It took me quite a few solid hours of blocked time each day over a couple of days to sort it all, clean it all, and list everything and photograph it all. It was emotional letting it go. I didn't enjoy the experience, but I liked my reason. I was willing to do the hard work and experience the discomfort of negative emotions to move forward in my life to get the result that I wanted. What are you willing to do? My coach Brooke said in one of her recent podcasts, if we are unwilling to do hard things, if we are unwilling to do massive action, there is nothing that is going to keep us growing. When it comes to managing your money and creating bigger in your life, at some point you need to decide you are willing to do hard things. And why wouldn't you want to? I'm telling you, I feel so good after selling all my gear. When I transferred that first payment for my coach training, I experienced such a sense of accomplishment and pride that I had created the opportunity for myself by being willing to do hard things and feel uncomfortable. And funnily enough, on one of the days that I was selling the gear, it was a really good reality check actually, because it was when the bushfires were really bad. Like there'd been fires in New South Wales, but then fires had also started in Victoria, and we knew people in affected areas, and Melbourne was covered in smoke. And Louis came home and he was just like, Meaghan, some people don't even have camera gear to sell. They've just lost everything, their house, everything, and it just was, I don't want to say that there's positive things that come out of negative things in the way that I don't want to take anything away from the horrible experience that many people in the fires have had. But I was like, you're absolutely right. I can't be indulging in these feelings of, oh, this is so hard to sell this stuff. It's just like, just sell it, get on with it, get a reality check on life. So if you start to really examine your life and the emotions you feel on a day-to-day basis, believe me, you will start to notice that your life is 50% positive and 50% negative emotion. And when I say negative, I don't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. For example, you might feel the negative emotion of restricting yourself from buying that pair of shoes because you spent too much money over Christmas and you made the decision to cut back on your spending. But then you also feel the positive emotion of feeling pleased with yourself that you have avoided going into debt and your bank account is looking healthy. If you're going to feel negative emotion 50% of the time, you might as well do it working towards something that you want, right? So I want to invite you to be open to doing hard things. Be open to experiencing discomfort on purpose. A crazy concept to contemplate, I know. But if we're going to feel negative emotion anyway, why not choose it on purpose instead of being in default mode where you experience discomfort? It's just the discomfort that you're more familiar with, right? Food for thought. Are you willing to do hard things? I sure hope so. As always, if you want to stay connected between episodes, head over to Instagram or Facebook. What do I use? I use the handle Money Mindful Podcast to keep up to date and be the first to know what is happening in the Money Mindful world. Get on the Money Mindful email list, or what I like to call the Money Mindful Ladies Club, because that just sounds far more glamorous. Until next time, have a beautiful week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Money Mindful podcast. For more info, visit moneymindful.com.au. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe. And remember, the information in this podcast is of a general nature only and does not take into account your personal circumstances or goals. Please seek professional advice for your own financial needs. Remember to have fun along the way.